All right, team. Today, we're starting something big. From now on, every month we'll have a full chess journey. Week 1, the main line of a new opening. Week 2, the traps and mistakes. Week 3, Endgame mastery, from basics to expert. And Week 4, we'll review epic games from grandmasters using that opening.
Wait, so this is week 3? We're doing Endgames?
Exactly. And today, we're starting with the very first essential rule for pawn endgames. The rule of the square.
Rule of the square? Sounds like a math test.
Relax. No math. Just chess magic. And you, yes, you watching, even if you already know the rule of the square, trust me. By the end of this video, I'll show you something you've never seen before.
Oh, now I'm curious. Can you tell me now? Please, please, please.
Nope. You'll have to wait, fuzzball. Okay, in here, we've got a lonely white pawn on g2 and the kings far apart. The big question, can this pawn promote all by itself, or does it need help from its king?
That pawn looks brave, but also kind of lonely.
Enter the rule of the square. Here's how it works. We imagine a square. From the pawn to its promotion square, then across and down like this. If the enemy king is inside that square, it can stop the pawn. If it's outside, no chance.
So, this is like tag and the pawn is running for home before the king can catch it?
Exactly. And in our case, the black king is way too far. We push pawn to g4, shrinking the square.
The king moves to b7.
Pawn to g5, making the square even smaller.
King to c7.
Pawn to g6.
King to d7.
Pawn to g7. Now the king is hopeless. After king to e7, we promote with pawn to g8, and it's game over. But it's not always so easy. Let's move the pawn to f2.
Ooh, feels more dangerous for our pawn.
Right. We push pawn to f4, draw the square, and guess what? Black's king steps inside with king to b7. That's trouble.
So now the king is playing tag and winning?
Exactly. We try pawn to f5, but king to c7 keeps inside the square. Pawn to f6, king to d7, always staying in. Even after pawn to f7, king to e7 is there to stop promotion. Finally, pawn to f8 becomes a queen, but king takes on f8. Draw city. If the pawn is too far back, you might need the king's help. In this same f-pawn position, white's king can head for the key squares, e4, f4, or g4.
Key squares? Are there also lock squares?
Nope, no lock squares. But these key squares are like VIP seats. If our king gets there, the pawn is guaranteed to promote. Here's how it works. From our starting position, we move king to b2.
Marching to VIP seating, got it.
Black plays king to b7. We go king to c3. Black goes king to c6. We go king to c4. And boom, we just won the opposition.
Opposition? Like political opposition?
Not quite, genius. In chess, opposition means it's your opponent's turn and they have to step aside. And when they do, we sneak in. Black plays king to d6. We go king to d4. Black plays king to e6. We keep the pressure with king to e4. Another opposition win.
So we're basically hurting the black king backwards?
Exactly. If they go king to f6, we take the most important key square in front of our pawn. King to f4.
And that means promotion party?
Almost. After king to e6, we outflank with king to g5. Black retreats to king to f7. We match with king to f5. Black plays king to g7. Now we push pawn to f3. A waiting move.
A wait move? Like buying time?
Exactly. When the king moves, we slide to king to g6, and our pawn is escorted straight to the finish line.
So once the pawn hits the 5th rank, it's basically unstoppable?
Right. Pawn on the 6th rank is a winning ticket here, and the rest is just easy cleanup. All right, new position. White king on h1, white pawn on b3, and black king on h7. This time, it's black to move.
Oh no, is my poor pawn in danger?
Let's find out. Black plays king to g6. The question, is this king inside the pawn square?
Let me guess, maybe?
You can check. Draw the square from the pawn to the promotion square on b8, then across and down. Yep, black's inside the square. That means the king can catch the pawn.
Bo.
We try pawn to b4. Black stays inside the square with king to f6. We push pawn to b5. Black steps right back in with king to e6. Pawn to b6, king to d7. Still inside. Pawn to b7, king to c7. And after pawn to b8 becomes a queen, king takes on b8.
So, all that work for a snack that gets stolen?
Exactly. That's why you can't just push without checking if the king's in the square. Okay, now same pawn, same file. But now black's king is on g6 instead of h7.
Oh, feels even scarier. He's closer to my pawn.
Yep. And if white tries to bring the king over with king to g2, it's already too late. Why? Because black knows the 3 key squares for this pawn are a 5, b5, and c5. If the king gets to one of those before your pawn, the game is toast.
So black just parks on my keys like a grumpy landlord?
Exactly. Black plays king to f5, blocking the way. We try king to f3. Black goes king to e5. King to e3. Black goes king to d5. King to d3. Black goes king to c5.
It's like chasing a cat that doesn't want to be caught.
Yep. And notice, white is always one step behind. Even if we try to sneak around with king to b2 and then king to b4, black wins the opposition again. The result? A draw, because we can never get in front of the pawn.
So moral of the story? If your king's not ahead, your pawn's probably doomed.
Exactly, fuzzball. And that's how the rule of the square and the key squares work together to tell you if a pawn can make it or not. All right, Jesse, pop quiz. Position, white king on d2, white pawn on a 4, black king on f7. Can the pawn promote by itself?
Let me draw the square from a 4 up to a 8, across to e8, down to e4, back to a 4. The black king on f7 is outside that square, so yes, the pawn runs on its own.
Show me the race.
Pawn to a 5, black goes king to a 7, pawn to a 6, king to d7, pawn to a 7, king to c7, pawn to a 8 and promote to queen, and black only just reaches b7 next move. Too late.
Perfect. You've got the rule locked in. Now let's crank it up. Next position gets trickier. In this position, white king on d3, white pawns on g5 and h5, black king on d6, black pawn on h7. Your move, Jesse. What's the plan?
Easy. We yeet the g-pawn. Pawn to g6 they take, we take back, then we just run the g-pawn to glory. Boom! Victory!
Hold it, superhero. That line actually draws. Watch carefully.
Wait, what? Show me.
Sure. If you go pawn to g6, black plays pawn takes on g6. You recapture pawn takes on g6. Now, your passed pawn is on the g-file. But the black king is inside the square of that g-pawn. For example, black goes king to e7. If you try pawn to g7, black plays king to f7. Then, after pawn to g8, and promote to queen, Black just plays king takes on g8. Game drawn.
No, my push-push queen plan betrayed me.
Because you pushed the wrong pawn. The h-pawn is the hero here. Use a little deflection first.
Deflection, like cat videos? Okay, what's the winning line?
Do this instead. Pawn to g6. Black must reply pawn takes on g6. Now pawn to h6. And we're racing the h-pawn, not the g-pawn. If black tries king to e7, you go pawn to h7. After king to f7, you play pawn to h8 and promote to queen. And they cannot capture it. Your deflection fixed everything.
So I sacrificed the g-pawn's path on purpose just to clear the way for h-pawn. That's kind of genius.
Exactly. And there's a second winning move order too. Start with pawn to h6. If black plays king to e6, then go pawn to g6. Black must pawn takes on g6, and you go pawn to h7. Same story, same win.
Okay, lesson learned. When the king is inside the g-pawn square, switch the spotlight to the h-pawn and use g6 as a deflection. I'm writing this on my fridge.
All right, Jesse. Welcome to the final boss. This is where people think they understand the rule of the square. And then they get crushed.
Whoa, we've got 2 pawns. This should be easy, but okay. From now on, I'm drawing the squares first. Square for the b-pawn. The black king on f4 is inside that square. So if I start pushing the b-pawn, the king can catch it. That one looks hopeless. Now the d-pawn, square for that one. The king is outside this square, but there's a black pawn in front of it. If I move pawn to d6, they just take it with pawn takes on d6. And if I try the b-pawn anyway, the king runs over, gets inside both squares, and I lose everything. I think there's no winning plan here.
That's exactly where most players give up. But not us. Remember, the rule of the square tells you if a king can catch a pawn on the fastest path. What if we block that path?
Block the king's path? With what?
With this. First move. Pawn to d6. Now 2 ideas for black. Line A, they capture immediately. Pawn to d6. Pawn takes on d6. Pawn to b5. King to e5. Pawn to b6. King to e6. Pawn to b7. King to d7. Pawn to b8 and promote to queen. Too late. The king couldn't use the diagonal f4 to e5 to d6 to c7 to b8 because its own pawn on d6 blocked the route. We queen and win. Line B. If instead black tries to reopen the path earlier with pawn to d5 after step 3, we go pawn to b7. Then after king to d6, we still play pawn to b8 and promote to queen. They've wasted a tempo fixing their own problem.
Wait, so the black king was inside the b-pawn square, and we still win because we forced its pawn to block the highway?
Exactly. This is interference. We changed the geometry so the fastest path no longer exists. The rule of the square is powerful, but the real power is knowing when to break its assumptions.
My brain just leveled up. I'm naming my next cat D6.
You don't even have a cat.
Fine, I'll name my goldfish D6. Every time it swims forward, I'll yell, "Block the square!"
Haha. Whatever works, fuzzball. But hey, if you watching right now didn't see that trick coming, that means you learned something new today.
And if you did see it coming, you're officially smarter than me, which isn't hard but still impressive.
So here's the deal. Drop a comment with D6 if this blew your mind.
And subscribe, because next time we're diving into a Grandmaster game that's basically a boss fight, but with 2 rules of the square colliding.
Trust me, it's going to be wild. Until then, Keep your kings active, your pawns protected, and your goldfish well fed.
D6 forever!